Well, I was going to say good morning, everyone, but I guess it's 12:30. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm super excited to be here with you today. My name is Jen Davis. I'm a MAPS coach. I'm also the vice president of MAPS Coaching, and I own a real estate team. So I am located in Springfield, Missouri, and have spent most of my career really diving into success with buyers. And so when I was just running our team ahead of taking on this role with MAPS, I ran the buy side of our business for about 6 years and consistently was closing around 225 units per year. So helping 225 families find their home per year for 3 years in a row. And then transitioned into running our team and now running MAPS. So my favorite role, though, is being a MAPS coach. So I love the opportunity to partner with people to enhance their business. So if you have any questions today, please don't hesitate to pop those in the chat. I will attempt to leave some time right at the end of this so that I can answer those questions for you. We're going to go ahead and jump in and get started. So when I think of the buy side of the business, this is how I picture it in my head. And so I had this amazing person on my team that was able to help turn it into a graphic so that everyone could read my writing. So it's the premise behind it is this idea of a hole in the hose. So think of if you were going to water your grass or water your garden, you would attach a hose to your house and you would turn on the water, with the end goal being that water is going to flow out of the end of it, right? So you can water your garden or water your grass. So when I think of the buy side of the business, I look at lead generation as the attachment to the house, right? The thing that we can turn off or turn on to get the water to flow out of the hose. One of the things that I've noticed in all of my years, either helping buyers purchase a home or coaching agents in how to improve their business, is that there are certain weak points throughout that hose, right? So if I'm looking at, I move to your area and I need to start a real estate team, and I specifically want to work with buyers, what would I have to do for 90 days to build up a business where I would have consistent closings, right? And that number of closings would be dependent on what my level of income needed to be. So when I look at it, I look at lead generation is that lever, right? What are we going to turn on? What are the sources we're going to use? How much of it are we going to turn on, right? That's the activity. So if I look at lead generation as an activity, and I want to improve my business, I can improve my business two ways. I can either increase my skill or I can increase my activity. Lead generation is the activity that I can increase. When I get into skill set, that's when I look at lead follow-up, right? How often am I following up with the leads? Gary often talks about what good is lead generation if we actually don't set an appointment. What good is lead generation if we don't have buyers to follow up with later? So if I do a really great job and I'm in my office and I'm lead generating and I'm getting people's names and information and I'm collecting all of that, what happens next, right? What happens with those buyers that aren't ready to move forward right now? I have to put them into a lead follow-up plan. What does that lead follow-up plan look like? It could be a smart plan if you use Command. It could be, a piece of notebook paper. It could be a Google sheet. It could be whatever you want it to be that you will follow. There was a period of time in my life when, before I had showing agents or really any leverage on the buy side, I was closing anywhere from 50 to 75 properties per year. And my lead follow-up was when I was driving between showings. I would make calls safely, of course, right? Hands-free and making those calls. Yet I would make sure that I had that notebook with me during the day so that I never wasted an opportunity to connect with a buyer. And what we'll get to later in this session is, what did my pipeline report look like? That's what we're after. If I want to know how much business I can do in 90 days, I need to understand what my pipeline looks like. The reason I want to know my pipeline is because then I have predictable income. And I know based on my pipeline, how much lead generation I need to do. If I know my pipeline, I know where those buyers fit and what their follow-up plan is. So I can see Hillary and I can see Sarah on my screen. So if Hillary wants to buy right now, my effort is with Hillary right now. If Sarah wants to buy a year from now, that doesn't mean I'm not following up with Sarah, but it might mean that I'm not showing Sarah houses right now, right? They have different follow-up plans. Different follow-up plans mean different communication. Yet if I don't know that Hillary needs to buy in the next 30 days and Sarah doesn't want to buy for a year, sometimes what might happen is that I may be spending my time with Sarah and forget about Hillary. And I've actually spent time with the wrong buyer. Both are important, yet we would have a different level of communication with each one. The next stage of this, we really hone in on skill, right? So we get to a strategy session. Some people call this a buyer consult. Yet when we start lead generating for buyers, our goal is to get them into a strategy session. When we get them into a strategy session, that's our ability to get into relationship with a buyer that we're setting up as a professional relationship. We're setting expectations. We're talking to them about the market. We're getting that buyer agency agreement signed so that we can move forward. So when I look at building out my business in 90 days, I can say, okay, I'm doing a great job on lead generation. I've got a pool of leads to call back, right? I'm going to do a great job on follow-up. I know where Hillary's at. I know where Sarah's at. I know who I need to follow up with and when, and I've got a plan for it. The next step is getting them into that strategy session, because that's where I'm going to get the wants, I'm going to get the needs, I'm going to get their timeline, their motivation. There's this old saying that people will say, buyers are liars. It's single-handedly one of the biggest myths in real estate. Buyers aren't liars. Those buyers that say to you, Jen, I want to buy land, or maybe I want to buy a condo, or maybe I want to move to Florida, or maybe I want to stay here. It's not that they're lying. It's that we haven't asked the question that will unlock really what their timeline and motivation is. This is the skill level. So if I want to build business so that I can sell enough houses in 90 days to create the income that I need to be very skilled in the strategy session to understand where in the funnel that buyer is. The buyer that says to you, I want land, no, I want a condo, no, I'm going to move to Florida. It's not that they're lying to you. It's genuinely that you've caught them too high in the lead funnel. So if you think of a funnel, right, it's really wide on top and really low on the bottom. Most of your leads are going to live at the top of the funnel. It's our job to follow up with them to get them to that narrow part in the funnel so that we can help them buy a house. What we don't want to do, though, is spend a lot of time with those leads that are at the top of the funnel. So when I get a buyer into a strategy session, we're going to spend the majority of our time talking about timeline and motivation. If I meet with someone for an hour, 35 to 40 minutes is about their timeline and motivation. The questions that I ask, what's important to you about that timeline? What happens if we don't find a house by the end of June? How will it impact you? How will it impact your family? What would your plan be? The reason we ask those questions, because if I'm asking those and someone says to me, I'm a right now buyer, I need to buy a home by the end of June. And I ask them and I say, hey, so what happens? If we don't find a house, if you're not prepared to make an offer on something by the end of June, and they say, oh, it's no big deal. I've got an apartment. It's month to month. I can re-sign my lease for a year. I start then thinking they might be a right now buyer, yet their urgency isn't so great that it's going to overcome certain objections, right? Those are the buyers that you're like, the more detailed their plan B is, the more likely it's their plan A. And I just want to really understand what their timeline and motivation is, because I don't want to drop the ball for them. I want to make sure that I'm communicating with them in a way that gets them where they want to be when they want to get there. The next part of it is getting that agency agreement signed. We want to make sure that when we're in that strategy session, do they understand the value in working with a buyer's agent? Do they understand why they would sign that loyalty agreement with us? Those are the skill parts of it. And so I'm not going to go through the rest of the hole in the hose today. This is something that we go through in Mega Buyer Agent. Yet I wanted to go through this part because this is the part of the hose that would create the pipeline for you for the next 90 days. So when I look at this, if I were to say, I'm going to build a pipeline in the next 90 days, I move to your area, I've got to start. This is where I would start. I would think I've got to turn on the faucet, right? I've got to turn on the water. I've got to follow up with those leads. I need to meet with them. I need them to sign agreements with me. And I need to understand where they're at in the funnel. So I know where my income is going to come from, not just for 90 days, but for the next year or 2 years, right? As we build this out. So the next step of this is I would look at and say, okay, I'm not moving to a new area. Maybe I'm new to the industry. Maybe like me, you've been in real estate since 2008 and you still think I could do better. Where would I start, right? I want to jump in. I want to increase my production over the next 90 days. One of the things that I would do is I would jump into my sphere, right? One of the things that we know is when we have 201 or more people in Command, so we've tracked it through Command. You may use another CRM, yet we know the numbers through Command. If I have 201 or more people in Command, I know that my predictable income will be somewhere around $120,000 in that 12 months. It doesn't mean that I get to put 201 plus people in Command and then do nothing with it. What I need to do is I need to put it in there. I need to put them on a smart plan and I need to connect with them. So how do we handle that conversation, right? What does it sound like to call your sphere? So if I'm a new agent, I might call my sphere and say, hey, Hillary, it's Jen. How are you? What's going on? I'm going to ask questions about her. And when she gives me that feedback, what's new that's going on with her, gives me her life updates, guess what? At some point, she's going to say, Jen, what's new with you? I'm going to say, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I just joined Keller Williams. I'm licensed. I am jumping into real estate. I'm so excited about it. And she's going to ask me how things went and all those things. And my only ask for her then is there anything that you have any curiosity on, right? I'm learning. I'm learning the market. I'm doing all this research. I'm seeing all these great houses. I've partnered with a great team or I've partnered with a great market center. I'm asking what I can do for them. I'm not asking them for any business yet because I've not earned that right. The thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to look at it. There's an agent out of Chicago that says it well. His name's Tommy Choi, and he says, most of the time we want to make 4 deposits in somebody's life before we ask for something, right? Think about going to a bank. You can't withdraw money before you deposit something. So I'm looking and saying, what value can I give them? Do they want market information, right? Do they need maybe a reference for somebody to paint a bedroom? What value can I offer them consistently over time as they start to see me build my real estate career? If I'm a seasoned agent and I maybe haven't reached out to my sphere in a while, it sounds really similar, except when they say, hey, what's new with you? They usually will say, hey, Jen, how's the market? Right? How's the market? It's such a normal conversation. It's literally the one question that all agents are waiting to be asked by someone. How's the market? And instead of inundating them with everything that I know about average days on market and price per square foot and month supply of inventory, I will answer with a question. Oh gosh, market's great. What makes you ask? Are you thinking about buying or selling, right? That's why I'm asking. Why do you ask? And if they say, oh, no real reason, I was just curious, I would say, oh, well, I get that. What I'm seeing is this. It's still a really strong market. I'm giving them the information that they need, but I'm narrowing it down to something that might be useful. If I know that in the past they've talked about an investment property, what I might say is, oh gosh, the market is doing great, right? Our team had a great month last month. Are you guys thinking about buying that investment property? And they'll say yes, or they'll say no. And I'll say, how's your house, right? What's going on? Do you need any recommendations? Can I give you, is there any information that you're looking for? They may ask me for, well, what do you think my home's worth? Now is my opportunity to add additional value. Some additional touches with your sphere. One of the things that I love to do are handwritten notes. So my goal every week when I was fully into production was I would write 2 handwritten notes every day, Monday through Friday, and I would mail all of them out on Friday. And it would be things that I maybe saw on social media. Somebody had a baby, somebody had somebody that passed away that they were close to, they got married, something exciting happened in their life, maybe a birthday. I would write out all the cards, I would mail them on that Friday, and it was just something different that set me apart from anyone else, right? I wasn't asking for anything. That's another deposit. Some additional touches clearly are going to be social media. Are we liking? It's not just the like on someone's, Instagram or Facebook, right? It's the interaction. It's making a comment. It's asking a question, right? It's connecting them with something. Someone says, oh my gosh, I'm looking for, any spring type things this weekend. It's understanding they're looking for that. I'm going to go and find the resource and plug it in as a comment, right? I want to be, the Angie's List of real estate. That's what Gary always says. Angie's List never should have been created because agents should be the resource for all things with their sphere and with their client base. So some of you may have been with me a couple of weeks ago when we went over lead generation sources. And so we're going to go through this, yet there is another video where I went through this really in a lot of detail. One of the things that we have to determine when we're creating our pipeline, and if you said 90 days from now, I want to have changed my business, right? I want to increase my business. I want to be proactive versus reactive. Things we have to decide. We have to decide, are we going to be marketing-based agents or prospecting-based? What do I mean by that? Our team is built on prospecting based. We do outbound dials, right? We call TCPA friendly, of course. We call for sale by owners, we call expireds. If we get internet leads in, we outbound prospect those. Yet we also do marketing to our sphere and past clients. I always like to have a healthy mix. I like to do outbound prospecting for about 60% of our business. The reason being is I want our database to grow, right? I want to add new people to it that become clients, that become past clients, that become raving fans that will give us those referrals and buy with us again. Do you know your top 3 sources? So if I'm moving to your area, something that would happen for me is I would no longer have current clients. If I'm moving to an area I don't live, I wouldn't have sphere or past clients. So I would focus on, this would be if you're new to an area or a brand new agent, how do I get listings? How do I market somebody else's listings? How do I do open houses, right? I need to get sign calls, which means I need listings. Buyers always come from having a sign in the ground. And then I would look at web leads, right? Can I run some ads can I run some campaigns on Facebook to generate some additional leads? So when I look at this, I think if I were anybody out there that said, I'm in my same area, I'm not moving somewhere, I'm not a new agent, where would you focus? I want to focus on those that are, number one, raving fans of mine. So those would be current clients, sphere and past clients. Yet I'm also going to turn up the activity, right? I'm going to see, where can I get additional listings, right? Where can I host additional open houses? Can I get into the shift book and host a 7th level open house? Am I willing to do all of the activities to be able to increase my business? Finally, after we have our leads, so right, if you look back at that hole in the hose, and we say, we're going to do lead generation, we're going to do follow-up, right? We're going to do strategy sessions. We're going to get buyer agency agreement signed. This is what a pipeline report looks like. So my pipeline report, and there are ways to do this in Command, so you have your opportunities and all of that, yet for a visual for today, this is how I think of it. I'm looking at people, do I have anyone under contract? Am I currently negotiating anyone? Who are my 30-day buyers? So what I want to qualify for a 30-day buyer, it's not someone that may purchase in the next 30 days. It's someone that has to purchase in the next 30 days. Because here's why. Every day, every Monday, when I come into the office, this is how I run a pipeline report. I walk in on Monday and I say, okay, this is who I got under contract over the weekend. This is what I'm still negotiating. Here are the 30-day buyers that I still have left, right? Those 30-day buyers are my first call on a Monday. And let's say again, I'm sorry, Hillary and Sarah, that I'm picking on you, yet you're right on my screen. So I would call Hillary and I would say, hey, Hillary, it's Jen. I'm so sorry that house on Saturday didn't work out. I just wanted to double check your schedule this week. Would you rather go look at properties tomorrow or Thursday? What I'm doing is I'm getting Hillary on my calendar first. We've all had the weekend where we forgot about a buyer or we didn't proactively call them, and the buyer calls us and says, hey, can I go look at this house? And you're like, oh, I'm already booked or I'm going to be out of town, right? What I'm doing is I'm forward pacing Hillary. Hillary says to me, you know what, Jen, I really can only look Thursday evening. Awesome. Guess what? Hillary gets a prime spot in my calendar, which would be a night or a weekend, because she can buy right now. The second thing that happens is now I have a sense of urgency around finding Hillary a house. She's on my calendar. She expects to hear from me Thursday with the address of the property we're going to go take a look at. Now, then I would call Sarah. Hey, Sarah, it's Jen. How are you? I know that last week there were no new properties that popped up. However, I just wanted to let you know, I actually went and door knocked the neighborhood that you want to look for a home in. I'm waiting for a few calls back. Yet I wanted to make sure what your schedule looked like this week so that we could get into those properties if one works, right? I am proactively finding her a house. I'm doing extra things for her because she's my 30-day buyer. If I want to get paid, my fastest way to do that is to take a 30-day buyer and find them a house. That's my job. My job is not to watch MLS and hope that something pops up. My job is to go find the house. I can call for sell by owners, right? I can look at old expired listings. I can door knock areas where my buyers want to be. I can do all kinds of things to proactively create inventory. I can go to my market center and say, does anybody have a listing coming up that fits this criteria? But what I'm saying is my 30-day buyers get my best energy. They get my best showing times and they get my best communication. So if I know that I've got 2 buyers that can buy now, before I let anybody else on my calendar, they get taken care of. Then I'm going to look at 30-day buyers with issues. These are the buyers that could buy in 30 days, yet something has to happen. Something has to drop off a credit report. They have a house to sell first. They're waiting on their lease to expire. Yet one of those dominoes happens, then they become buyers. I am listing that buyer's name out, and I'm listing out the issue that's preventing them from buying. The reason being is when I call them, I want to check in with them pretty often because that can happen, that can change in a weekend. So if I call Noelle and say, hey, Noelle, it's Jen, I just wanted to double check. I know you're moving to Springfield, Missouri from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Just wondered, how did your open house go yesterday? And Noelle says to me, oh gosh, Jen, it went great. We got 3 offers in. We're going to accept one of them today by noon. Guess what? Noelle now is an A buyer, right? She's moved from 30 days with issues to 30-day buyer. If I didn't call, I don't know that. I'm waiting on her to call me. And how does she feel if I call her first? If I call and say, hey, how's it going? What do you need, right? I'm forward pacing it. My job is to find somebody the best possible house at the best possible price in the time frame that works for their family. So when I look at this, I look and say, okay, I have the ability to predetermine my income over the next 90 days based on how I follow up with people. So then I might look at 60 to 90 day buyers. These are buyers that they're going to do something, right? We've had a strategy session. I know their plan. I know what the reasons are that they're waiting. Yet I'm still going to follow up with them. Yet in my pipeline report, I'm going to put some timeframes around that. Did I ask them how they wanted to be communicated with? I hope so, right? If I ask the question, how often, how often do you want me to communicate? Do you like text? Do you like email? Do you like calls? I'm asking those questions because I'm determining my follow-up plan. And I'm going to call them probably once a week. Hey, how are you? If it's a 60-day buyer, maybe go every couple of weeks with a 90-day buyer. Yet at any point, their motivation can shift, right? And 45 days can go by pretty fast. And if we've not reached out to someone, that's when you make a call on a 60-day buyer and the buyer says, I bought something at an open house. And you're like, oh, I should have called earlier. There are times that I just called to check in and we just do, a non-update update. Hey, Noelle, it's Jen. Just wanted to check in, see how things were going. Has anything on your end changed, or are you still looking to move sometime around July 1? That's not a weird call. It's not a hard call, right? I'm just checking in and she's going to say, actually, Jen, our timeline moved up. Or she might say, you know what, Jen, I actually don't even think we're going to come to Springfield until probably mid-November. Isn't that great to know? Because now my follow-up plan changes, right? I'm not worried about talking to Noelle now every week or every 2 weeks. I can put her on a different follow-up plan, freeing up my pipeline for those buyers that can do something now. A 90-day buyer for me is somebody that's anywhere beyond that. Those are touches that we're going to utilize email for, text messages, and also calls. We just want to be very clear in that strategy session with the buyer. What do they expect? What does a five-star consumer experience look like for them? And then we want to tailor our communication to that, right? If I don't know your timeline, I don't know how to communicate with you. And so one of the things that I will ask somebody is I'll say, okay, so, I know that you want to be to Springfield no later than the end of June. That's awesome. What that means to me, though, is we really have about 10 days to get you under contract on a property. So every time something pops up that fits what you're looking for, I'm going to call you, I'm going to text you, I'm going to email you, I'm going to send smoke signals your way. Does that sound like the communication level you're expecting? If they're expecting to buy in the next 10 days, they're not overwhelmed by that. If that's not really their timeline, they may say something like, oh gosh, no, just, a couple of times a week, just check in with me. I'm going to dig in more to that timeline, right? I'm going to dig into that motivation and whatever that plan B might be. So I know that we're very near end of time. I'm going to pop into the chat and see if there are any questions or ahas. If any of you would like to join me for the next round of Mega Buyer Agent, where we go through the very full hole in the hose exercise and strategy sessions and all of that, please scan that QR code and get signed up. So Logan asked, he didn't follow what was the recommended interval for touches for 60-day buyers. Logan, I would probably call once a week until that motivation changes, because that 60 days could turn to 45 days very quickly. I don't see any other questions in the chat. So if anybody needs anything, I'm super easy to find. My email address is jen.davis@kw.com. I would love to hear from you. If you have any ahas, share them with me. And I hope to see you June 1.